March 23rd, 1912. A boy is born into Prussian nobility in a town that no longer exists on maps. His mother, an amateur astronomer, points telescopes toward the heavens. His father serves as Minister of Agriculture in the Weimar Republic. The boy's name is Wernher von Braun, and he will take humanity to the moon. But the path to that achievement will be paved with 20,000 bodies. At age 12, young Wernher attached the largest fireworks he could buy to a toy wagon and launched it down a crowded Berlin street. Police arrested him. They released him to his father for discipline. The incident was prophetic. Obsessive determination to reach space, regardless of consequences. 1 year later, everything changed. Von Braun acquired Hermann Oberth's book on rocket science. He could not understand the mathematics. He was failing his classes. So he made a vow. He would master math and physics. The transformation was complete. Before graduation, he was teaching mathematics to other students. This single book became, in his words, not only the guiding star of his life, but his first contact with the theoretical and practical aspects of rocketry. By age 17, he joined the German Rocket Society, working at an abandoned ammunition dump in Berlin. By 19, he was one of the brightest young rocket engineers in Germany. Then came the choice that would define his life. In the fall of 1932, with the Rocket Society facing bankruptcy, 20-year-old von Braun accepted German Army sponsorship. He later justified it by saying the Army's money was the only hope for big progress towards space travel. At age 22, he completed his doctorate in physics. The thesis remained classified until 1960. It detailed rocket construction for the German military. The trajectory was set. Brilliant young engineer. Singular obsession with space. Willing to accept money from anyone who would fund his dreams. In 1937, his team moved to Peenemünde on the Baltic coast. What they built there was revolutionary. They built the A4 rocket, later renamed Vergeltungswaffe 2. Its name in English was Vengeance Weapon 2, commonly called V2. It stood 46 feet tall. It weighed 12.5 tons at launch. A liquid fuel engine produced 25 tons of thrust. It used gyroscopic guidance systems. Its aerodynamics were designed for supersonic flight exceeding Mach 4. On October 3rd, 1942, the fourth test launch succeeded. The rocket reached an altitude of 52 miles. It traveled 118 miles. It reached a speed of 3,300 miles per hour. General Walter Dornberger declared this the first day of a new era in transportation, the era of space travel. He was right. The same technology would serve as a blueprint for missiles capable of delivering nuclear annihilation, and for the Saturn V Thing that would land humans on the moon. In July 1943, von Braun and Dornberger showed Hitler a film of the successful launch. Hitler, previously skeptical, gave the program top priority. He said if Germany had possessed these rockets in 1939, there would never have been a war. Hitler demanded 900 rockets per month. That target was never achieved. Then came the night that changed everything. August 17th, 1943. 597 British bombers attacked Peenemünde. 735 people died. The attack delayed, but didn't stop the program. The decision was made to move production underground, to the Mittelwerk factory in the Konstein Mountain, to be built and operated by concentration camp prisoners. The first 107 prisoners from Buchenwald arrived at Mittelbau-Dora on August 28, 1943. What followed represents one of the most horrific chapters of the Holocaust. A French survivor described arrival in March 1944. He recalled that at Buchenbach, they always told us, if you must leave here, let's hope it won't be for Dora. It's the terminus. For the first 6 months, prisoners lived inside the tunnels, working 12-hour shifts, sleeping on cold stone with straw, relieving themselves in oil barrels cut in half. They had no access to daylight or fresh air. Another French resistance survivor called it the hell of all concentration camps. The guards drove prisoners at an infernal speed, shouting and raining blows down on them, threatening them with execution. The scale of death was systematic. Approximately 20,000 to 25,000 prisoners died at Mittelbau-Dora from starvation, disease, beatings, executions, cave-ins, overwork. In the first 6 months alone, over 6,000 died. By comparison, the completed V-2 rockets killed approximately 9,000 civilians and military personnel when deployed as weapons. The V-2 remains the only weapon system in history to have killed more people in its production than in its use. And Wernher von Braun knew. The historical record is unambiguous. He visited Mittelwerk at least 12 to 15 times in his 1969 testimony. He walked through the underground sleeping quarters where prisoners lived in tunnels in late 1943. He admitted these conditions were horrific and repulsive. But the most damning document emerged from archives, an August 15, 1944 memo authored by von Braun describing his trip to Buchenbach concentration camp to personally select prisoners and arrange their transfer to Dora for V-2 production work. Von Braun had also joined the SS. On May 1, 1940, he became an SS second lieutenant at Heinrich Himmler's very definite desire. He later claimed he had no alternative if he wanted to continue rocket work. By 1943, he held the rank of SS Major. He wore the black SS uniform to official meetings. Between September 8, 1944 and March 27, 1945, approximately 3,170 V-2 rockets were launched in combat. The first successful strike hit Paris. That evening, the first V-2 struck London, killing 3. The worst single incident came December 16, 1944, when a V-2 hit a cinema in Antwerp, killing 567. The V-2 was militarily useless. Despite costing as much as the Manhattan Project as a proportion of national gross domestic product, it could barely hit city-sized targets. British intelligence agents fed false impact reports. Germans recalibrated incorrectly. Rockets fell short, landing in less populated areas, reducing casualties by approximately 50%. A physicist with British Bomber Command later noted they were very grateful to Wernher von Braun. Each V-2 cost as much to produce as a high-performance fighter airplane. German forces desperately needed airplanes. The V-2 rockets were doing no military damage. Hitler's wonder weapon proved a spectacular strategic failure, but von Braun's technical triumph was complete. In early 1945, as Soviet forces advanced, von Braun assembled his planning staff. An engineer later recalled their assessment. "We despise the French. We are mortally afraid of the Soviets. We do not believe the British can afford us. So that leaves the Americans." On May 2, 1945, von Braun's brother approached an American private near Reutte, Austria. He called out in broken English, "My name is Magnus von Braun. My brother invented the V-2. We want to surrender." What followed was one of the most controversial decisions in American history. Operation Paperclip recruited over 1,600 German scientists for U.S. government employment. President Truman's directive explicitly prohibited recruiting any Nazi members or active Nazi supporters. The intelligence agency simply ignored this. They bleached files, eliminating or whitewashing incriminating evidence. Von Braun's SS membership was classified by the U.S. Army from 1945 to 1960. His concentration camp connections were suppressed. The sanitized biography portrayed him as an apolitical scientist who only wanted to go into space. Cold War imperatives trumped justice. The same men who oversaw 20,000 deaths at Mittelbau-Dora would become American heroes. Their pasts classified, their expertise indispensable. In September 1945, von Braun and 126 rocket scientists arrived at Fort Bliss, Texas. They reassembled captured V-2 rockets and launched them at White Sands. In 1950, the team moved to Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama. They developed the Redstone rocket, America's first large ballistic missile, directly built on V-2 foundations. Then came Sputnik on October 4th, 1957. The Soviet satellite shocked America. When the Navy's rocket exploded on the launch pad in December, von Braun's team got the call. In just 84 days, they assembled Explorer 1, America's first satellite, launched January 31st, 1958. Von Braun later said the 8-minute delay in confirming orbit contained the most anxious moments of his life. Von Braun became the face of American space exploration through his collaboration with Walt Disney. Beginning in 1955, 3 television programs reached 42 million viewers. In his iconic thick German accent, von Braun explained rocketry with infectious enthusiasm. President Eisenhower allegedly called Disney after one program aired, requesting a copy to screen for Pentagon officials. But he was also constructing a lie. In interviews and memoirs throughout the 1950s, von Braun created a story about Peenemünde that completely left concentration camp labor out, or reduced it to a tiny afterthought. When asked about his Nazi past, he deflected, claiming he was a victim. This was deeply misleading. His arrest by the Gestapo in March 1944 did not result from protesting slave labor. It resulted from joking drunkenly about Germany's defeat and his preference for building a spaceship. On July 1st, 1960, von Braun became the first director of NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. His mission was to develop rockets capable of landing humans on the moon. The result was Saturn V, the most powerful rocket ever built, 363 feet tall, producing 7.5 million pounds of thrust. On July 16, 1969, the Saturn V rocket launched from Kennedy Space Center carrying Apollo 11. 4 days later, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to walk on the moon. Von Braun had achieved his childhood dream. The Apollo program director later said the United States would not have reached the moon at all without von Braun's help. The one mainstream American critique during von Braun's lifetime came from comedian Tom Lehrer. His 1965 song captured the moral paradox. Once the rockets are up, who cares where they come down? That's not my department, said Wernher von Braun. Yet in Cold War America, few listened. Von Braun died from cancer on June 16, 1977, at age 65. President Carter said that to millions of Americans, Wernher von Braun's name was inextricably linked to our exploration of space. The truth remained buried until 1984, 7 years after von Braun's death. The Justice Department released records. Von Braun's SS membership became widely known. The full story of 20,000 deaths emerged. The sanitized narrative finally cracked. Von Braun never accepted personal responsibility. In 1969 testimony, he said that during his visits to Mittelwerk, he never saw a dead man. He never saw a beating or a killing. This was despite walking through underground sleeping quarters he himself described as horrific. The debate over von Braun's legacy remains unresolved. In 2014, a German school removed his name after Holocaust survivors protested. Yet in Huntsville, Alabama, transformed by von Braun's work, his name remains on buildings and streets. The city sees him as the man who brought prosperity. Critics see honoring an SS officer who oversaw slave labor. The facts are indisputable. Wernher von Braun was the most important rocket engineer of the 20th century. He led development of the V-2. He personally visited Mittelbau-Dora concentration camp 12 to 15 times. He was an SS officer who rose to the rank of major. Approximately 20,000 prisoners died producing V-2 rockets. More died from V-2 attacks. He actively concealed this history for 3 decades. He led development of Saturn V, which successfully landed 12 humans on the moon. He never fully accepted personal responsibility. He died in 1977, 7 years before the full truth emerged. Von Braun himself provided the metaphor that best captures his legacy. The rocket is Janus-faced, looking toward global nuclear annihilation and the peaceful exploration of space. The V2, in its origins and in its legacy, fully embodied that dual-sided reality. The question for each generation is not whether to remember von Braun, but how to remember him. Do we honor the visionary who took humanity to the moon while acknowledging that 20,000 people died for that vision? History offers no easy answers. The stars we reached were built on bones. This is the paradox we must grapple with, the moral reckoning we cannot avoid, and the legacy that will forever remain contested.